The sharp scrape of ceramic against wood cut through the silence. It was a simple motion, lasting less than a second, but as Sarah pushed the plate across the divide, their small apartment split into two distinct realities. To Leo, that sound wasn't just friction, it was a dinner bell, the signal that the best part of his day had finally arrived. He was 16, a tangled mess of growing limbs and insatiable metabolic fire. He looked at the plate sliding toward him and saw abundance. A mountain of pasta, glistening with a rich, red tomato sauce, flecked with basil and heavy with brown ground beef. It was steam rising in a comforting cloud. It was safety. It was the guarantee that no matter how hard the algebra test had been, or how grueling the football drills were, his mother had his back. He saw a mom who was generous, perhaps a little too indulgent, giving him the lion's share because she loved watching him eat. To Sarah, the sound of the plate sliding was the sound of surrender. It was the physical act of giving away the only fuel she had encountered in 24 hours. She watched the steam rise, and it didn't smell like comfort. It smelled like torture. The aroma of the garlic and the rendering fat hit the back of her throat, triggering a violent, cramping spasm in her empty stomach that she had to physically clamp her abdominal muscles to suppress. She wasn't looking at a meal. She was staring at a receipt. That mound of beef, $4.50. The pasta, $1. The sauce, another $2. Every forkful Leo lifted to his mouth was a piece of her own survival being physically transferred to him. She forced the muscles in her face to cooperate. She smiled. It was a practiced expression, one she had perfected over the last 3 months. It involved crinkling the eyes just enough to hide the gray exhaustion lingering in the dark circles beneath them. "Mom, you sure?" Leo asked, his fork already hovering, caught between guilt and instinct. "This is like all of it." "Oh, honey, please," Sarah laughed, waving a hand dismissively. She picked up her water glass, her fingers trembling slightly, hoping he wouldn't notice the vibration in the water's surface. "I told you, the firm took us to that bistro downtown for the quarterly review. I had a ribeye the size of your head at 1 o'clock. If I eat another bite, I think I'll explode." Rich people food. Leo grinned, the guilt evaporating instantly. If Mom was stuffed with steak, then this pasta wasn't theft. It was cleanup. "All right, your loss." He dug in. Sarah took a sip of ice water. It hit her empty stomach like a stone dropped down a well. The coldness radiated outward, chilling her from the inside, highlighting the hollowness. She watched him chew, vicariously living through the mechanics of his eating. She imagined the texture of the pasta, the saltiness of the meat. Her mouth watered, a painful, physiological betrayal that she had to swallow back. She kept the smile plastered on her face, listening to him talk about the varsity tryouts, nodding at the right intervals, while her body screamed in a silent, deafening roar for just one single bite. The deception had started in the grocery store aisles 2 days prior, a battlefield where the war for dignity was fought in silence. For Leo, the grocery trip was a bore, a necessary evil to keep the pantry stocked. He walked beside the cart, tossing things in with the casual arrogance of someone who has never had to check a bank balance. He saw items as desires, not costs. He grabbed a box of sugary cereal because the packaging was bright. He threw in a bag of the spicy tortilla chips his friends were obsessed with. He lingered in the sports drink aisle, eyeing the blue bottles. "Coach says I need to hydrate better for the scrimmages," he said, grabbing a 6-pack. "Can we get these?" To him, it was a simple question, a yes or no. To Sarah, standing 3 feet behind him, the question was a grenade. She was running a relentless tally in her head, the numbers burning like neon signs. $74. 6 days. The electric bill hung over her like a guillotine. She looked at the blue bottles, $8. Then, she looked at her own corner of the cart, the coffee she needed to stay awake and the bread she needed to survive. The math was cruel, but the choice was instant. "Sure, sweetie," she said, her voice steady, burying the panic deep where he couldn't see it. "If Coach says you need them." While Leo turned his attention to a magazine on the rack, Sarah performed the sleight of hand of the modern martyr. With a quick, ashamed movement, she took the coffee out of the cart and shoved it behind a row of canned beans on the shelf. Then, the bread. She sacrificed her breakfasts and her caffeine to make room for the electrolytes. When they reached the checkout, Leo was texting. He didn't see her hands shaking as she slid the debit card into the reader. He didn't see the bead of sweat trickle down her temple as the machine displayed authorizing. For 3 agonizing seconds, he didn't see the wave of nausea that hit her when the approved message finally flashed. He just saw his mom, efficient and capable, bagging the groceries. "You forgot your coffee," Leo noted as they walked to the car, popping open one of the blue drinks immediately. Trying to cut back, Sarah lied, the headache from caffeine withdrawal already beginning to throb behind her eyes. "It's bad for my skin." The kitchen, usually the heart of the home, had become a chamber of endurance. Preparing the dinner that night had been a high-wire act. Leo was in the shower, the sound of the water masking the sounds of Sarah's struggle. She stood over the stove, browning the beef. The smell was intoxicating, a thick, heavy cloud of rendering fat that coated the back of her throat. It didn't stimulate her appetite. It hijacked it. Sarah gripped the countertop, knuckles white, as the room tilted violently to the left. Black stars burst in her periphery. Her brain misfired, screaming a single command: eat. Just one spoonful. He won't know. She stared at the wooden spoon trembling in her hand, coated in rich, red sauce. Saliva flooded her mouth, painful and sharp. She lifted it, lips parting, the spoon inches from her teeth. Then, the shower turned off. The spell shattered. She dropped the spoon back with a sharp clang. If she tasted it, she wouldn't stop. She would devour the entire pan like a starving animal, and he would have nothing. And he needed it. She could see his ribs when he stretched. He was growing so fast it terrified her. He needed the protein to build the muscles that would get him the scholarship that would get him out of this life. She wasn't cooking dinner. She was building his future, 1 calorie at a time. She grabbed a glass of tap water and chugged it, filling the void with liquid volume to trick the stomach sensors. She took a deep breath, splashed cold water on her face to bring the color back to her pale cheeks, and turned around just as Leo walked into the kitchen, towel around his neck, smelling of soap and teenage optimism. "God, that smells amazing," he said, leaning over the pot, inhaling deeply. "You're the best, Mom." "Go set the table," she said, her voice bright and artificial. "It's almost ready." Back at the table, the meal was nearing its end. Leo was wiping the plate with a piece of bread, ensuring not a drop of sauce remained. "So," Leo said, chewing the bread, "Coach thinks I have a shot at starting linebacker next year. But he said I need to bulk up. Put on maybe 10, 15 pounds. Sarah felt a cold spike in her chest. 10 pounds. 10 pounds of food. That was hundreds of dollars. That was gallons of milk, cartons of eggs, pounds of meat she didn't have. That's great, Leo," she stammered, smiling. We'll make sure you get there." "Yeah," he said, oblivious to the panic in her eyes. "I figure I just need to eat more, right? Maybe double up on breakfast." Sarah looked down at her empty placemat. Her hands were folded in her lap, clenched so tight the fingernails were digging into her palms. The hunger pangs had moved past the cramping stage and settled into a dull, vibrating ache that made her feel light as air, as if she were untethered from the earth. "Absolutely," she whispered. Suddenly, the floor rushed up to meet her. The room didn't just spin. It dissolved into static. The hum of the refrigerator stretched into a deafening roar, drowning out the world. Sarah tried to stand. "I'll get the dishes," she mumbled, but her legs were gone. She stumbled, crashing her hip hard against the table edge. The water glass tipped, sending a cascade of ice water onto Leo's lap. "Mom!" Leo shouted, jumping up as the illusion of a normal dinner shattered on the floor. Sarah gripped the back of her chair, swaying. The world was gray. She couldn't focus on his face. She saw only a blur of concern. This was it. The mask was slipping. She was going to faint. And he was going to call an ambulance, and they would do blood work, and the doctor would tell him that his mother was suffering from severe malnutrition. He would know. He would know that every business lunch was a lie, that every diet was a cover for poverty. The shame of it burned hotter than the hunger. She couldn't let him know. She bit the inside of her cheek, hard. The sharp, copper taste of blood shocked her system back into focus. The adrenaline of the secret surged one last time. She forced her eyes open, locking onto his. She forced a laugh. It sounded brittle, manic. "Whoops," she chirped, gripping the chair until the wood creaked. "Head rush. Need to stop standing up so fast. I think that wine at lunch went straight to my head." Leo hesitated. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time that night. He saw the thinness of her arms. He saw the way her skin looked translucent under the kitchen light. For a split second, the illusion wavered. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. "You look really pale, Mom." "I'm fine, baby," she said, channeling every ounce of maternal authority she possessed. She grabbed a rag and started wiping the water, hiding her face. "Just tired. It's been a long quarter. Stress. You know?" She scrubbed the table vigorously, using the motion to disguise her tremors. "Go do your homework. I've got this." Leo stood there for a moment longer, the intuition of a son warring with the trust he had in his mother's strength. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that the world was secure, that the fridge was full, and that his mother was eating steaks at business lunches. The alternative was too frightening to consider. "Okay," he said slowly. "Thanks for dinner, Mom." "Anytime," she said, not looking up. She waited until she heard his bedroom door click shut. Only then did she allow herself to collapse. She sank onto the linoleum floor of the kitchen, her back against the dishwasher. The cool metal felt good against her feverish skin. The house was silent, save for the hum of the appliances. She saw the empty plate on the counter. Not a crumb left. He was full. He was growing. He was safe. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a single, crumpled saltine cracker she had taken from the break room at work. She had been saving it for an emergency, for the moment when the blackness threatened to take her completely. She ate it slowly, letting the dry, salty crumbs dissolve on her tongue. It wasn't a steak. It wasn't a meal. It was fuel. Sarah closed her eyes, the muffled thump of Leo's music vibrating through the wall. Her stomach roared, a hollow ache in the silence. But she smiled, a genuine, bloody smile. She had one. He didn't know. She pulled herself up. Rice was on sale tomorrow. If she walked the 3 miles to work, she'd save the bus fare. $2. That bought a half-gallon of milk. That bought him strong bones. She washed the plate, soap suds hiding her tremors, already scripting the next lie. For Sarah, starvation wasn't a tragedy. It was simply the overhead cost of being a mother.